The city is holding a media briefing on a new report to build more affordable housing now. Let's listen in.
An approach to try and meet housing demands and our residents and growing population's needs. We cannot afford to not act, and we urge the other levels of government to join us. We will need the support from the provincial and federal governments, as well as the nonprofit, cooperatives, private and philanthropic, sectors to support us if we are to succeed in this transformational changes that we're outlining today. So, next slide. Just from an agenda perspective, we're just going to take you through a review of the report itself. There are some background slides that will be included in the deck as well. Those ones we're not going to speak to specifically, but they may come in. We might leverage them with some of the questions and answers that we'll have a little later. And so, framing our conversation today, we just wanted to start with the housing challenges. And I don't know that how much of this would be a surprise. If we go to the next slide. Thank you, Vanessa. But there certainly, I think, is a very well understood the lack of housing options for low, moderate, and middle income households. And the private rental market is just not delivering the types of homes needed by low, moderate, and middle income earners. Indigenous residents and people from equity-deserving groups continue to be overrepresented in the city's homelessness population. And all of these factors, including not only the ones that I've just mentioned, but the ones listed on the slide, they are framing, I guess, how important this deliverable is and why we've outlined such a significant approach. Next slide, please, Vanessa. The Scotiabank actually reported earlier this year, and it stated that Canada needs a more ambitious, urgent strategy for social housing. The actions outlined in this report are necessary to increase affordable housing and increase the number of RGI social housing units after decades of insufficient government investment. And really, when we look back to the 60s and 70s, and as Abby and I were discussing earlier, 40 years of non-investment, we're at a point in which we need a radical approach in order to truly help solve this challenge. And as indicated on the slide, 79% of rental housing is owned by private or is privately owned, and only 15% is with Toronto Community Housing and about 6% with the other cooperatives. Moving to the next slide, just looking at the future and the increase in demand that we're going to have from a housing perspective. 2022, Toronto was estimated at 3 million from a population perspective, and we're anticipating significant growth, over 4 million by 2046. And there's different programs, certainly with the province and the federal government, that are contributing to that growth and what it is that we should be expecting as not only Canada, but certainly Toronto. Whether it be the immigration targets, and certainly we're seeing increases in the number of refugees that are within the Toronto borders as well. And all of these are contributing to more pressures on what it is that we need from a housing system. The market, given that market prices have increased significantly in Toronto to $1,982 for the average rent for vacant units and $1,672 for occupied units in 2022, and vacancy rates have decreased to 1.7%. And that is a very low number. It's one of the lowest that we've seen in a long time. The city and other levels of government have a keen interest that a new rental supply of affordable units needs to be in our long-range forecast. So if we look at the plan and the overview of the staff report, we'll move to the City of Toronto's approach, and this is a generational change for housing, improving affordability while increasing and accelerating the supply for the next generations of Torontonians. Investments from all levels of government in affordable and sustainable